Hambini fans, and welcome to another episode of Hambini Reams. Today, all the way from Xiamen in southern China, near to Taiwan no less, we've got these, which are these Elite Drive gravel wheels, which are very low inertia wheels, and they were sent to me for a review. So I've had these for about, I don't know, 4 months, something like that, and I've really, ragged them in that time. And this is the end review before they get sent on to the next reviewer. Is it actually attached to the bike? So this is my light carbon Pro X bike. I was supposed to give you a quick overview of it if you forget all the crap in the background. At the front, well, it's basically light carbon, but they've got this iGPS unit, which is actually really good. If you're going to get one of these head unit things and it's not a Garmin, I'll get that. My shit bar taping, and it's come undone, but I don't really give a shit. And then the rest of the frame, and now it's got the drive wheels with Maxxis Rambler tyres on it, so they are more off-road than not. And I've had them for, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months, and it has been fairly uneventful. You can just about make out where the corners of the rim have been damaged from basically me just going over rocks and cobbles and things, and it's mainly side blows. But overall, I mean, if you look at it from a distance, it doesn't look too bad really. The coating on the drive wheels is like a shiny, it's almost like Teflon. So when I wash the bike, I just use hot water. So my house has a tap that's hot that's outside. I don't use any muck off. And then just spray that on, and then it comes off and it evaporates quickly. Now, I wouldn't recommend you did that if you didn't have fully sealed bearings, but this bike does. So, and all the bearings that I've put on have. So it's not really even much of an issue. And obviously, the pedals are road pedals. I didn't bother changing them, so they're SPDSL. I think they're 105 level, maybe one slightly below, but they just don't give any grief. And the bike's been, pretty good. It's a good advert, really, for light carbon. Before I carry on, let me do some vital statistics with you. The first is, I am not that heavy. I don't really have massive man boobs, and I'm 73-ish kilos, and I'm extremely tall, which, if you regularly watch the channel, you'll know that people are amazed by how tall I am, but we digress. Right, I'll stop bullshitting. Right, yeah, I don't really weigh that much, and I don't put that much power out, so I've got the same power as a prawn, and to be fair, I don't even go that fast on the wheels, so they're not going to have as hard time as other people in terms of the rider mass and physics on it. However, these wheels get abused in the sense that they go through the conditions of Northern Europe. So I've had them in Holland, Germany, and the UK. Been riding around there. So yeah, that's where I would go. So the wheels are paired with Maxxis Rambler tyres. I think these are pretty much my tyre of choice, to be honest. They are tubeless compatible, both the wheels and the rims. Sorry, the tyres and the rims. But I choose to put tubes in them. I don't really care too much about the weight. I'd rather just have the convenience. And the pressure is, I usually use about 60 psi, which is roughly 4 bar. It's 14.7 psi to 1 bar. Yeah. Do this with the tyre off, but today we'll leave the tyre on. Starting on the outside, we've got the rim. It's this kind of like glossy finish, but it does attract fingerprints. So if you look closely, you can see it. You can also see various points, and you have to look quite carefully, around the periphery where basically the corner of the where the hook goes, so where the tyre hooks in, I've kind of chipped it, and that's just from use, sideways impact, bang. It's mainly the paint rather than anything else. I don't really think you can get away from that. It is mitigated by the tyre, but if you're going along terrain that's rocky, it's kind of like unavoidable. Beyond there, you've got the nipples, so metal nipples. I have seen some carbon nipples, which I think probably going to be coming soon. Carbon bladed spokes, and then we move from there over to the hub. So I've been using the Shimano GRX, well they're the same across loads of them, the the Ice Tech freezer type brake disc, and you can see there's a fair old lip on there already just from use. I reckon I must go through these every, I don't know, couple of thousand kilometers. Doesn't necessarily always go through wear, but they do have a tendency to warp, which isn't so good, especially if you are going, and not so much on this bike, but certainly on a road bike. If you go down a hill really fast and then encounter a puddle at the bottom, I think the thermal shock is enough just to warp it. So if anyone's got a better idea than using one of these, then do let me know. Now, some miserable shit last week said I shouldn't weigh stuff on the Princess blanket because it might give me an erroneous reading. Well, fuck you lot, wankers. Right, I thought it'd be useful this time to do a fully assembled wheel test, because all of this stuff, apart from the axle, is basically rotating. So that's your inertia in the train. So that is 2 kilos of inertia. It's actually measured in a different unit, kilogram meter squared, but 2 kilos in the back wheel of the rotating components. The wheel itself is actually very, very light. It's the other bits like the tyre and the tube, which are at a big radius, that contribute quite significantly. Let me get the front wheel. So that was 2014 grams. I'm just trying to work out to make sure I won't pop this. And that one is 1.48. I know some of you like to notice all these things. So 1,480 grams. Just to make the pacifist wankers happy, we'll zero it again. Oh look, it's 1.48. So the Princess blanket adds 3/10 of fuck all to the final answer, you pedantic bastards. Time for the hubs, let's get the cassette off. I've already loosened this, so it just makes life a little bit easier. Fuckity fuck. Now, what we're greeted with here is it's a different type of hub. It was made by a brand I've never heard of called Fiori. Now if you look carefully, and you will probably have to look carefully, you see just about in the corners where the bite marks are, but overall that hub's in pretty good condition. You can also see over here, I'll zoom in a bit, where some of the anodizing's come off, but really in the grand scheme of things that's pretty minor. In case you think this is rigged, it is, because I've already undone most of these, just so it's easier to show you on one take. This apart, which is the rear hub, you just need to put a spanner on there, or a wrench, across the flats, and the same on the other side. I've slackened this off, and then you can undo it. Oh, we flip this over. That's come off. And then we're at the free hub. So this has conventional pawls in it, which is a bit of a rarity actually. I think Elite are moving towards the DT style ratchet. I prefer this type, but not everyone agrees. I just think this is easier to service. Pretty run-of-the-mill in terms of hub. It does seem to seal quite well. The seal's built into the actual hub that goes onto the bike. Fairly run-of-the-mill, so 15mm bearings. I think there's 602, and then a bigger one inside. Not really had any issues with it, and you can actually see where the grease has leaked out. So I have refilled it maybe once or twice, but that's about it. In terms of ingress inwards, hardly anything. The bearings are apparently ceramic, but I'll show you some of the vibration data from that later on. With any real kind of wheels, one of the things that, especially disc wheels these days, is the position of the disc, and this one seems to be in line with Windspace, YOLO, 9 Velo and Fastboards. They all seem to locate in exactly the same place. You know, you can just swap the wheels from one to the other. Here, I don't know what they use on this hub, but it's considerably harder than what's used on the free hub. I mean, it's hardly any marks on there, whereas if I flip it over, okay, it's not the end of the world, and this may not show up that well on camera, but on the corners, it has worn it away. I mean, this kind of, it's like more like an aesthetic finish is fine, apart from you can't actually see it. So if this costs more, probably not a great idea. The way this is machined is actually quite interesting, because normally they tend to have a full length slot, but this one's had some material removed, so you're only on the flat that gives you power. So if I could just, it's almost like a ramp. So across here, there's a hard face. From this side, it's a ramp. So I think it's there to reduce weight, but it's not an easy thing to machine that. Quite interesting. Here's the widths. So I'm using a tape measure today because you'll be able to see it. And it's a dual measurement one, which is unusual for me. The outside is almost bang on 30 millimeters, and the inside is about 24, maybe 25 millimeters, maybe 24, could be 23. It's a bit less accurate in there, but you know, you get the idea. Now when the wheels turn up, they come like this with the tape already installed, so you can just run them as tubeless if you want to, or in my case I just pull the valves out and then put tubed in, but it's just clean. Back wheel weight is 728 grams. This is the front wheel, and that is weighing in at 623 grams minus all the appendages. Right, it's that time of the show again. It's time to get the special Wankcom. Fuck, I've unplugged it. Pen out. Fuck, is the pen not working? What the fuck's that? Oh, Jesus. Oh, pen troubles. Get the rubber out. I'm not sure why there's a black mark there. Never mind. Right, I've got some pen damage. Shit. Right, right. Let's just check the pen is working. Not doing that again. Whoa, right. Elitewheels mechanics, and that's not the spanner monkeys. I was actually thinking more in mathematical terms. For the acceleration purist by Hambini, age 5. The main reason for me going on about this is because these wheels have very low inertia, so they accelerate very well, really well. Right, let me show you the Elite website. Right, so this is the Elite website, at the forefront of wheel tech, giving our pro teams only the best, blah, 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 usual marketing stuff, reliable, race ready, da, 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 and these are all the wheels that you can get. So they have a fairly good selection. I mean, they've been on all sorts of channels and things. So featured on these, now I think this one was paid, I think Cyclist was paid, Cycling Weekly was definitely paid, Off-Road CC was paid, Bike Room was paid, Cyclist Hub was probably a paid affiliate link with a shill. And they've got Trustpilot reviews as well. Now, these are the wheels in question. So the Drive G45, you can pick a few different hub options. So Shimano HG, SRAM XDR, no Campag though, so bear that in mind. Silver and black colour. And then you go down here, and these are the specs of the wheels. There's nothing really too much in there to write home about. If you are slightly on the tubby side, the weight limit is 130 kilos, or if you are in America, it is 285 Big Max. Right. Right, so this is the specification that I've lifted, the key points, let's say. Fucking hell, I'm not very good with IT. Yep, sorry, I was just checking the pen was working again. It's 45mm tubeless. Now, they are tubeless, but I always run a tube. If you are in the middle of nowhere and you have a puncture, and let's say the tyre comes off its seat, which I've had happen before, sometimes, well, quite often, you need something fairly hefty to reseat it. Whereas just the normal Cycle Plus, oh fuck, I can't even say it. The small little mini USB pump that I use will just pump a tube without any issues. And if you use one of those Ride Now tubes that looks like a Johnny or a rubber, then they're quite lightweight. Disc brake, 24mm, you know, usual stuff. Ceramic bearing, that is a bit of a weakness, which we'll come to. Carbon spokes, again, to reduce the inertia. And you can put in up to 50mm tyres. The overall wheel weight for both front and back is 1290 grams. Well, that was what I measured it at. And that is very low. But with this, the difference is where the weight is. So if you were to take a wheel like this and then put a band around the outside, if that's all where the heavy area is, that is much slower than another wheel where the weight is all concentrated in the middle. So that might be 1290 grams and that might be 1290 grams, but you want this one. Yeah, that one is not as good. So wheels are coming out onto YouTube, so they're not going to faff around with this. They would be really stupid if they had. So 0.5 mil, 0.4 mil lateral tension. We'll come to that in a minute. You can get some more pics on hambini.com. This is the wheel tension chart. Now, obviously, not so long ago, we had the Trifox wheels in which were just shite. These ones are much better. There's very even tension across the wheel, which suggests that it's come out of the mould fairly square, because there's not really much deflection you can get in a carbon rim. It's not like an alloy rim, which is a lot more ductile. Yeah, I mean, it's just nothing really to write home about. So the difference between, you know, that one, I mean, they're all about 160 on that one, and those ones are like 140 to 150, so I wouldn't really fret too much about that. We've now got, I think I must have clicked something by accident. This is the outer balance. The outer balance is very low. It's 200 gram millimeters, which is 3/10 of fuck all. If you ask me if this was rigged, I would probably say partly rigged. The partial bit is, I think if you were to take a handful of these wheels, they would all follow where my dots are going. They would all be in this band. Yeah. In there. I think they've just picked the ones that's the best in that band. If you were to take, you know, some other wheels, that might be a huge variation. Whereas the Elite ones, I'm fairly sure, based on what I've seen, that the QA QC is just tighter, and they've picked the best one out of their tightened QA QC. So yeah, there we go. The bearings, so all of these seats were M5. So the digit, the 5, 7, 9, as you go higher, that's getting worse. So the hole is less round, effectively. And then if you go the other way, 3, 1, that's getting more round. Normally, a 7 would be acceptable, so a 5 is obviously better than average, well above average. A 7 is what DT has. In fact, some of the DTs are fucking beyond the 7. You can get the even digits, but most people don't use them. The M just signifies the fit, so M is a mild interference. I think for practical purposes, some people call it transition, I'm not sure. Yeah, under tension, when you put spoke tension on, it tends to make the flange bigger, or can make the flange bigger. It tends to be around the cheaper hubs. With this,
didn't happen. So it's, you know, fairly strong material and the geometry is good. So yeah, it's good. And then yeah, so this, I mean, you could argue this is user error or it's, you know, a thing with the product. Ceramic bearings for gravel use probably aren't a good idea. So, and then the other problem is when I'm on my gravel bike, I don't treat it like a road bike. I just jump onto curbs, go through massive potholes. I don't care really. I mean, it's just, you know, to avoid going into the back of taxis again, I think that was last year, I just like, you know, hit a curb or whatever. And then after a while, in a couple of 1,000 kilometers, you can see the track damage in the, or track deterioration in the front bearings, because they're the ones that take the impact. The back ones are loaded and they've got the weight on, and you sort of just climb over the curb. So yeah, take that into consideration. So ceramic bearing is obviously very hard, and then you've got a comparatively soft race, and it just bangs into them. Now you might say, well, you know, that's just Hambini being a knobhead, but I kind of inflicted the same abuse on the 9 Velo wheels, and they survived. Now I always put this one up. DT Swiss is considered by mechanics to be like the go-to standard for wheels. I think they're slightly deluded because they don't measure these kind of variables. They're probably looking A, for their margin, and B, what their part stock is. So because DT Swiss has such a huge market penetration, it's almost become a standard. So these bike shops stock that. These days, in the days of, you know, the internet age, people can just order parts from a central warehouse. So this isn't quite as important. But if you were to mechanically look at a DT hub, and this is a 180, this is what I got. So you've got the runouts there. This one, 50 microns on something that's like 40mm diameter is absolutely fucking garbage. You'd expect like, and that's 0.02 of an inch, so 0.02 inches. You know, for the old school amongst you, on something that's that big, you'd expect like a thou and a half. So, you know, and that's like kind of like pushing it. If I was to do it like for the day job, I'd expect 0 on something that's 40mm. But obviously, it's not a jet engine, gas turbine engine. So it's just crap. This is the Elite wheel. So you've got there just under a thou, 20 microns. 1,000 a bit, so that's 30 microns and 20 microns. It's good, it's better than the DT hub, and you'd certainly accept that, so that's a good point on that regard. But, and this is the but, the 9 Velo is like another league ahead. So this is good, but it's not the best. Right, the good bits and the bad bits. I mean, I've spoken about this before. The inertia is difficult to describe unless you ride the wheels back to back, but when you are leaving a set of traffic light, you can feel the difference. It's quite noticeable. And also when you apply the brakes, because the bike slows down much faster, and also the handling is a bit different because you haven't got as much gyroscopic force to contend with. Braking's good, I've mentioned that. Now the hub, as I mentioned before, it's better than a DT. It's easily better than a DT, but you've got these guys who've just taken it to another level. Now there was one 9 Velo video that I saw from a guy in China where he had some sort of problem with it, and it looked like there was some issue with the hub. I believe they've swapped it now, so I think he's sorted, but I think that's the only bad thing that I heard about it. But anyway, the balance, now I did say I thought this might be rigged, even if it isn't. I think the QA/QC is just at a higher level. And generally, if you go around the sort of forums and things, you get a good user experience. There's not really many issues that you come across, and they are well priced. So when you buy them, they come to your door with all the taxes and the duty and all that prepaid. So that's a good thing. Now the bad is always the same. The wheel is of a very good quality. You know, it's got the plus point, which is a low inertia, and then you've got like the other candidates, like, you know, the Wind Spaces of the world, the 9 Velos and the Farspots, who all have, and the Magines, who all have their sort of plus points. But, and this is a big but for some people, the badge appeal If you are one of those people in Western United States and California who needs to have the badge to make up for their lack of pen iteration, this isn't really going to cut it. You want a badge that says this, zip, yes, zipper, and that's it. Some people are snobs, some people aren't. I think these guys, you know, Elite, Windspaces of the world, they're almost like the Hondas and the Hyundais. They're going to end up getting there. You can also already see the strategies kind of like changing because the Zips of the world are in a bit of financial bother. Right, questions and comments, you can go and have a look on the website hambeanie.com. And please comment and like below. Remember to follow me on Instagram. I'm also on Patreon and the website hambeanie.com. That is the end of this show. If you did enjoy it, remember to smash that like button. If you didn't, go screw yourself. And as always, keep banging your hairdresser.